correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Welcome to Me and Steve Talk RPG, the podcast where me and my friend Steve try and help you get the most out of your role-playing game experience. Hey folks, welcome back to Me and Steve Talk RPGs. I'm Steve, and I'm joined by a guest tonight. And in the midst of introducing him, we're also going to shout out our D20 Network affiliate show of the week, because this week I'm joined by Daryl from How We Roll. So hello, Daryl. Would you like to tell us about your podcast?
Hello, Steve. I would love to tell you about our podcast. The How We Roll Gaming podcast is a lot like your show, where my co hosts, Nick and Robert, and I banter back and forth about different RPG subjects. And one of the aspects about it that I really hadn't thought of until I think it was the last time we were the Spotlight D20 Network show is that all three of us GM, but all three of us are also players within our group because we run an ungodly amount of campaigns. And almost every Saturday and Sunday, we're all gathered together, and it's a different game pretty much every day. So sometimes it'll be bi-monthly before the next session of a campaign comes around. But that's neither here nor there. What you had pointed out that I hadn't thought of is that we're able to kind of come at all of the subjects from multiple perspectives because I GM for the two of them. I'm a player for the two of them, and the same applies with Nick and Robert. You know, they GM and are players for all of us. So we kind of bounce in that direction. And most recently, we discussed, what did we talk about most recently? Um, Most recently, we were talking about, I am stalling for time, about whether or not, or when or if an adversary should go in for the kill. If they have a
Okay.
PC down, you know, should should they go in for the kill? They've got the PC down. They can make that killing blow. Should they? If not, why not? If yes, why yes? And we have a lot of fun talking games.
Yeah, I think like for you guys though, that's a very unique perspective for you guys, and in my head suddenly as you were talking about it, that Spider-Man meme came up where it's the three Spider-Mans all pointing at each other.
Yes.
Um but the fact that you guys can talk about situations that happened and have feedback, oh, when you did this as a GM, as a player, it felt like this. But you have, multiple angles to approach that from. I think that is a really unique thing.
Yeah, and like I said, we hadn't thought of that angle consciously until we heard you mention it, and I was like, "Oh, we need to lean into this, guys. That's our groove."
Oh, but it's a unique perspective, and I think you can learn a lot discussing things that way. And then, if
Yep.
you can learn it, then you can share it, and that's what we're here for, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So, where all can people find How We Roll, other than on this cute little card that I have here?
You can find us at our website, howwerollgaming.com. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser. We're even on Audible podcasts, and I've spammed it everywhere that I could find to register the podcast, and also on YouTube. So I'm going to sound like a cliche here. If you happen to listen or watch on YouTube, because we do record video and I do throw a little bit of video production flair here and there on the YouTube version. Do all of the cliched YouTube things like subscribe, notifications, so that algorithms can algorithm.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is a good show, and then obviously you and Nick and Robert are all very good people, and I've had the pleasure of playing and GMing with and for all of you in the past. So that's been very much fun.
Yeah, and I will give one little scoop here as I'm looking where I looked up what we did last. Coming up soon on our merch store, we're about to launch a new T-shirt
Ooh.
that has a die that has rolled a nat 1 with the slogan on it that says crying is a free action.
On a slightly related topic, have you seen the like short that's going around of someone that did, the Afro Man song Because I Got High? Well, they redid it to Cuz I Rolled a 1.
I think so. I think my lovely wife Stephanie has I've heard that on her phone as she's scrolling through things, I believe.
Cuz I rolled a 1. I rolled a 1.
But that does sound familiar.
All right. Well, in addition to, going to check out Daryl's podcast, Daryl has wonderfully
Yes.
agreed to come have a conversation with me because the wonderful winter storm that is steaming up through the United States, and Daryl is currently listening to Sleet On and is supposed to, may even be hitting my house now as we speak, is causing problems where the other Steve lives. And oh, by the way, Daryl, you have now achieved honorary Steve status for whatever that's worth because this is, I believe, your third appearance on the show.
I believe so. Woo! I just call me Steve.
Ugh. But anyway, I thought we might have a conversation tonight about characters, and not necessarily characters in the way we normally think about characters in games, but more in the context of characters from media that you see, and there's something about that character or the portrayal of that character that you would want to take and bring into your gaming somehow. And, is to kind of explain this weird concept that's in my head to you when I pitched this idea, I
Right.
mentioned Frank Burns, Larry Linville's character from the MASH television series.
Mhm.
And the thing about that character is he's kind of the villain, the foil, obviously, to Hawkeye, who's arguably the main character of the series.
Right.
But he's he's got this weird way of being harmlessly irritating and annoying to the point where you have this almost visceral reaction to him appearing, and I'm going, man, how could I create, an NPC that generates that level of reaction from the rest from the table?
He's sort of a phrase that popped into my head just now thinking about Frank Burns is he's incompetently malicious.
And ambiguously vexatious.
Yes. And yeah, you're right. He walks in the room and you're like, "Oh, here's Frank. What nonsense is he about to pull out of his butt this time?"
Right. And like, but at the same point, how much fun would your table have if you could have a character that did that? But how do you set that up?
How do you harness that energy of any character, not just Frank, but any?
Right. Yeah. Well, like I said, you obviously don't.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're more than well. I tell people all the time, beg, borrow, and steal. But
Yeah.
eh, you know, just so to speak, that element of the character. How I mean, I don't know how could you apply that to an NPC in a game?
Well, and so there one of the Star Wars campaigns that we have, Nick and I co-GM, and there was one Imperial Vice Admiral that I I was trying to channel that this is going to be a weird. This is going to sound like a weird mix. Both two characters from the same actor, wildly different characters, but Mr. Rourke and Khan because as one thing that I like to do with my NPCs in particular, a lot of my PCs too, but definitely with my NPCs, is to help me kind of get a handle on them and get a quick bit out to my players like to give them an idea of who this person is as a shorthand is I try to quote unquote cast them.
I actually have noticed you do that while I'm playing under you, and it actually does help, like, visualizing things.
And we were trying to come up with who this guy was, and I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh, this is Ricardo Montalban." And Nick liked the visual, but being an Imperial Vice Admiral, he couldn't go full con, right?
Mhm.
But he wasn't debonair and benevolent like Mr. Rourke. So he was somewhere in the middle,
Mhm.
and I still haven't quite gotten the hang of it. But it's yeah, it's something that I do try to do because it does work as a shorthand too. It's great for bringing the kind of energy of a particular character because I played one character in a Star Wars campaign that I was like, oh yeah, this is totally Star Lord. This is
Mhm.
totally Star Lord. And he started out as a different Chris Pratt. He was Chris Pratt from the first Jurassic World.
Mhm.
But the more the campaign went on, I was like, "Oh, no, no, no. He's not that smart. He's not that savvy. He's an idiot. He's Star-Lord." But yeah, it I find that, like I say, it does help the players immediately know who they're dealing with and get an idea for the kind of character that they're dealing with. Now, the other thing too is that vibe that they get from the NPC may not be who the NPC actually is. They may act like Frank Burns, but they're con.
Yeah, no, that's fair. No, I wonder,
They
like
they
I said,
may
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just, like, I was wondering, do you try to, like, break it down to, like, where, Burns was obsessed with regulation and letter of the law, but also was just, would try to brown nose ridiculously, etc. And then when it didn't go the way he hoped it would, be like, well, it was, let's all be friends anyway.
Yeah, that see, now I need to find a game to put a Frank Burns NPC in because now I wanna do that. Now I wanna do that. I have seen that kind of vibe actually more with PCs than with NPCs.
Yeah, and see, that's what I wonder too. Is that a thing that because of the screen time, is it easier to do that with a PC, for lack of a better term to say it?
That specific thing with Frank, I see it more with PCs because, well, the PCs are carrying over from session to session. The
Hmm.
NPCs may or may not. And so at the end when their scheme blows up in their face, they almost have to try to say, "Hey, let's still be friends."
Yeah, yeah.
I I I had that kind of thing with a player once who um I told this story on one of our recent episodes, I think, that um the player was playing a would-be space pirate who believed herself to be the daughter of a relatively famous and notorious named canon character space pirate
Hmm.
in Star Wars lore. And so she was constantly trying to get mom's attention or who she think is mom's attention.
Hmm.
And in doing so would constantly put their jobs at risk and the other players being the players are like, "What are you doing? You're trying to get us killed." And but I didn't mean anything by it. Let's be friends. Because they couldn't shoot her out an airlock because it's another PC.
Yeah.
They couldn't kick her off the crew because it's another PC.
Hmm.
But but yeah, now I want a Frank Burns NPC. I just need to figure out where they can fit. And it's all your fault, Steve.
Hey, you know what? I'm good for ideas. So, I mean, do you want to, like, trade back and forth here with, maybe a character that
Sure.
you see, because I've got a couple more, but I don't want to, like, just bounce all my ideas off you. It'd be fun to
Oh
go back
yeah,
and
yeah.
forth.
No, no. Um there's actually a couple of different takes on the same character that I would love to try to do, and this would obviously be with maybe not the big bad of a campaign, but a big bad, and that's either the Michael Rosenbaum Smallville version of Lex Luthor or the Nicholas Holt 2025 version of Lex Luthor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Nicholas Holt's pretty straightforward, but I like that his Lex was self-aware. When he's like, you're doing all of this because you're jealous. I mean, that's just jealousy. He's like, I'm not stupid. I know it's because of jealousy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's because of jealousy, and that's my motivation. I'm going to kill you. But the Rosenbaum one on Smallville would be harder to pull off because you have your big bad, who is also one of your PC's best friends
Mm-hmm.
and is charming and wants the best for your PC, but he's also a villain. And I really liked that genuine vibe that Rosenbaum brought to Lex, in that he would move heaven and earth to help Clark, but he had his own not so savory goals that you, Clark didn't know about because that's his buddy Lex.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to have that kind of a layered villain that at least one of the PCs actually wants to spend time with and hang out with, and who's also doing all of this shady crap on the side.
I'm going to respond to you with one that I was thinking about bringing up because it very much relates to this, and that's Dexter Morgan from the Dexter series.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
very similar dynamic, if you will. I mean, obviously he's much more the main character, but he's sort of a villain, sort of a hero,
yeah,
and there's the layers of what the character is and what he does and what the people he cares about do and the conflicting motivations. And I think to a sense, boy, that's tough to pull off.
yeah.
I mean,
It is.
because for it to be as rich as it is in the media that we're referencing, you kind of have to see it from a third person perspective. And it's hard to see it in a third person perspective and still pull it off at the table, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, it makes total sense. And two, there's another element in that what's making all of these characters that we're talking about and the ones that we haven't even brought up yet, what makes them so memorable and the traits that we like about them that we're trying to emulate about them is, as a GM, we're one person,
Yes.
but there is a team of writers for the show or the movie, and an actor, and in most cases the director has input in how it's going to. So it's a team effort giving us that character that we're saying, I like that vibe and I want to get that vibe.
Hmm.
Which, you know we could sit here, like you said, we can beg, borrow, and steal and say like, okay, I am doing Frank Burns as an NPC, and just do our best Frank Burns impression.
Hmm.
It's much harder for us to, as a one man show, if you will, to say like, I don't want to do Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor, but I want a character like that and build that character from scratch.
So, and I don't know that this works in every game, but what if you kind of invert the the trope, if you will? Instead of Lex Luthor, Superman is the villain, and Clark Kent is the friend. If your NPC has an alter ego that is playing the villain or
Right,
the friend, does that maybe help that dynamic work for that type of character?
right. And that's something, granted, I'm a player in it, I'm not a GM,
Well, I'm just
but
saying,
we
like,
no,
you
no,
know,
I'm just saying we've got a mutants and masterminds that, even as a player, I'm kind of doing that. So we're working off of pre-gens, even though it's a campaign, and we haven't had much secret identity time. I need to talk to our GM, Dante.
but
um,
you know what I'm saying? Could you maybe pull that theme off easier with an alternate identity for the
Possibly,
NPC that one or the other is their public face, and
right.
in a superhero game, obviously that's maybe overly tropey, but
Well, in a superhero game, it's a little easier to do because heroes and villains alike, Lex is an exception to the rule. It's just Rosenbaum just knocked that out of the park for the 7 years he was on the show.
Mhm.
Um, but you know, heroes and villains alike have their superhero identity and their civilian identity for
Mhm.
the most part. Thanks MCU for blowing up one of the most fun tropes of the genre. Uh, um, but with other genres of games, that's a little harder to do because I'm thinking of like in a Delta Green possibly because you have someone putting on their public face and they go in the basement and they're conjuring forth cosmic horror.
Right.
Uh, but like a Star Wars or a D&D, how often do they have that? So then you go back to Frank.
Yeah.
Or,
But well,
not
you
necessarily
could do
Frank,
it
but
in Star Wars, whatever. You could have a character that always appears in a full suit of armor, a distinctive
yeah.
set of body armor. Eh,
Nick and
just have him
Robert.
put on glasses. It worked for Clark.
Hey, look at pictures of Zoe Deschanel with her hair back and her glasses off, and look at pictures of Zoe Deschanel the way you normally see her. It works. Um, no, Robert and Nick also co-GM a Star Wars campaign, and they actually pulled that off with a villain for us.
Cool.
They introduced a an NPC that we all fell in love with, and she kept showing back up every so often. She was partly manic pixie dream girl and partly badass fighter. And just because of a running gag that started in the first session that they used her, chairs were her weapon of choice
Mhm.
for the most part, folding
Mhm.
chairs. And she turned out to be the big bad of quote unquote season 1.
Mhm.
And we loved her, and when the reveal came, we were all shocked into silence for a few moments.
Mhm.
So they worked that dual identity. I don't know if there was anyone in particular that they were channeling and had in mind when they
Mhm.
created her. I'm going to have to ask them about that, but they managed to do it.
Well, and I think my thought, as with a lot of topics that we talk about on the show, it's more about the concepts than specifics in my head
Yeah.
anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said, that concept of having that character that is both friend and foe, and are they not aware that that's who they're dealing with?
Yeah, it's my train of thought just derailed.
Okay, I
You've
can
seen
go
The
to
Fugitive. You've
yes,
seen The Fugitive, right?
yeah,
You know
not
when
in
the
quite a
train goes
while.
off the tracks? You know when the train goes off the tracks? That was my train of thought just now.
Well, I will go to my next one then, if that works for you.
Go for it.
I want to bring up Frank Reagan, Tom Selleck in Blue Bloods. And the
Mhm.
thing that I love about that character is how well he portrays the weight he feels from the different roles he fills.
Yeah,
Like you really see Tom Selleck brings that out so much, the weight of being the administrative head of the NYPD and his duties dealing with press and public image and his
and all of the bureaucracy.
and then his duties and roots, as he came up as an officer and a detective, etc. So his roots to you know, the people under him, and then also his duties and responsibilities to his family, who are also parts of that whole thing, and the way he plays the internal conflict of this side of me wants this and that side of me wants that, and these people I care about are going to be mad if I make either of those choices.
Right. No, that is a good character. That's a good one.
And I think again that maybe that's not a great character as an NPC because you need enough.
You need to see all of the different settings and all of the different flavors.
Yeah, but I
Well,
don't know.
that no, he could work well, depending on what game you're playing and what the setup is, it could work because Danny and Jamie often saw both home Frank, work Frank, bureaucrat Frank.
Mhm.
So if you have a PC who has that sort of connection to the character, be it a child or sibling or whoever, an apprentice, if you will, that is like family, you could still do that because they're seeing, you know, okay, we're at work now, and so you're seeing this part, and it's like because I've worked with both my wife and my son, and work me is not home me.
Mhm.
So, uh, it's still possible to get that in there with an NPC. You just have to make sure that if it were me making that NPC, they would almost be starting from session one, and I would pick one of the player characters and say like, okay, I'm your dad, I'm your mentor, I'm your whatever, and establish the relationship, and it's like, and I don't care if you don't like it because you don't get to pick your family anyway. And of course, I would, if my players are usually coming at me with a backstory to some degree, and so I would pick one that it works with.
Right.
I'm not going to pick the one who's the orphan trying to find their family,
Well, no, that doesn't work
or
so well.
whatever, or the one trying to track down the one-armed man who killed their father and say like, I'm your father.
You have 6 fingers on your right hand.
I can't help but notice. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. The most perfect movie ever made. Moment of silence for Rob Reiner.
Indeed.
You know, Inigo Montoya is one of those characters.
Actually, now that you say that, I was just thinking that that's because it
Inigo is
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, just with one story about his childhood that Mandy Patinkin tells,
Mhm.
and then everything else is said without being said in the way Inigo acts. And the fact that he is looking for the six-fingered man, and will do whatever, he hires himself out as a mercenary because he needs to pay the bills and keep looking for the six-fingered man. And he's another one of those characters that at first you're oh, ooh, this is a villain. Oh, but I like this guy. And
Mhm.
he's not really a villain. He's just an antagonist.
Yeah. And he's
For now,
comedy, but it's
but
like
not wacky.
it's like it's almost like it was originally conceived as a gag character, and then Patinkin brought a soul to the role.
I dare say that every single member of that cast did that same thing with their characters.
Yes.
But yes, Mandy Patinkin did an amazing job as an ego. But seeing him go, and that entire character arc of him in that movie, and to end on like, I've been in the revenge business for so long, I don't know what to do with the rest of my life.
Right? Yeah, like that gut punch, you know, like and if you think about it, right? Like, yeah, how does it when your entire reason for being now isn't there?
Yeah. And he's he's an insanely competent swordsman,
Mhm.
and he's confident in it, but also not cocky about it.
Mm,
He's a little cocky sometimes,
yeah.
but
Yeah, the left-handed bit, but
yeah,
at the same
but
point,
that's
it's
also born out of the competence. He's like, well, if I use my right hand, it's going to be over too quickly. I can't keep my skills up, so I'm going to duel him left-handed.
Mhm. Yeah, it is a cockiness, but it's more of a confidence because, how is it they say, it's not shit talk if you back it up.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and the only reason he went, the only reason we have that gag is, like, you know, I'm not left-handed, is because Wesley was as good as him.
mhm.
In fact, he's like, you might be better than I am, but I'm not left-handed. I'm not either.
Yeah, yeah. God, that is a great movie. It really is.
It is. It is. It is one of the most perfect movies ever made. But yeah, like an ego type, some a character with those elements. I mean, yeah, like we keep saying, we could do Inigo Montoya, but how do you do an Inigo Montoya type?
Yeah, and I think the core of it is an obsessive focus with enough pragmatism that, like, he didn't he's obsessed with revenge, but he
Mhm.
honed a craft that he was able to use to support himself as a vehicle to get that
For the
revenge.
revenge, and just a banger of a line when he gets his revenge
Oh.
too.
Mhm.
Ah, and it's so much better than the version in the book too.
Yeah, that oh gosh. I've watched that twice recently too, so, at least.
I haven't seen it nearly recently enough, and I might need to change that while I'm hunkered down tomorrow.
Alright.
Alright, I jumped in with Inigo, so who's next?
I'm gonna go, and I know we I briefly mentioned it, the series, before we started recording, but Raymond Reddington from The Blacklist, James Spader.
Mhm.
And the thing about this character is the layers. Like, and I don't wanna spoil anything for anyone who hasn't seen the series, because it is a long series, but I will say there's a lot of character development in the last couple seasons that, well, arguably maybe aren't as good. The character development is so rich. But the thing I like about that character is, like, there's this it's he is an onion inside an onion. You peel off these layers. Is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy? Well, he's helping the good guys to catch bad guys, but he's kind of a slime ball, and boy, he's vicious. But there's a a a principle and some compassion, but at other times he's ruthless, and like the almost like this character that is almost schizophrenic, but it all makes sense. And by schizophrenic, I mean he's like here and here, but it worked. And like that again, the amount of screen time to develop it, and maybe we're almost into where we were talking about like Lex Luthor and Dexter Morgan, but like having the layers and the nuance to a character that, well, yeah, maybe he's a bad guy, but maybe he's not. And
Right.
I think the thing that I left that series with is, even in the end of the series, you're kind of in this mixed feeling of, well, was he really a bad guy or not? And I don't know. I guess I like to play around those kind of gray areas, because I think it just, if you have that gray area, I think what it does is it encourages the participants in the story to kind of have their own headcanon, and by them doing that, to become much more engaged.
Right.
And
Right. Yeah. Knowing what's going on with them helps as a GM to make that this isn't just an NPC that pops up every once in a while and expositions you a little bit, and then off we go.
yeah.
This is a character who exists in the scene that you're in with them, but when you leave, they're still doing stuff.
Right, right. I think that's the other thing that, like, man, I think too often we don't, as GMs, it's so easy to forget about your characters that aren't on screen, and that they're
Yeah.
still doing things, or they should be.
Yeah, they should be, stuff should be happening to them. Life should still be going on for them. Yeah, sure, it's fine to occasionally have that recurring NPC who, when the players aren't around them, they're basically stuck in amber. They're that gag character that shows back up. I've got one that I've introduced to one of my Star Wars campaigns that uh, is uh, he's a black market dealer that runs a pawn shop,
Mhm.
And whenever he shows up, he's basically always the same. He is always Clint Howard. He is always Ron Howard's brother, the character actor.
Okay.
And and he's always your stereotypical quirky Clint Howard character.
Okay.
And you know, he when they go to his pawn shop, which it's designed the whole bit with him is designed to be kind of static, and that every time they show up, the sign of his pawn shop has been graffitied, and it's been graffitied in the same way. And while they're dealing with him, he has his droid change the sign out. When they show back up, it's been graffitied again.
Mhm.
It's a repeating loop because that's what that character is meant to be. He's meant
Mhm.
to be a running gag. He's not to meant to be an ongoing character,
Mhm.
if you catch the difference there.
Yeah, yeah.
And so having those NPCs that have a life that goes on when they're not giving the PCs their exposition or whatever, or threatening them or what have you, the villain's gonna villain whether they're facing off against the heroes or not.
Yeah, that's true. Like I think sometimes in general we just probably due to lack of time, etc., we often and ironically as we were just talking about in Diego Montoya, we one dimension characters. And yet that is a character that is really very one dimensional and we were just talking about emulating that. But it, it's a different sort of one dimensional, I guess, that we do too often. It's a one dimensionality because we just aren't able to juggle that many plates.
We get concerned about when they're on screen.
Right.
And they're not on screen. I don't care what they're doing. Uh, you know, uh, Going with my metaphor of always casting my NPCs. You know, the actor's not in the scene, so they're off in their trailer.
Mhm.
They're off in their trailer. Reading or whatever. They're not involved in the plot of the story. Um, yeah, you I try. Hopefully, I succeed more often than not to have something going on with them when they're not on screen. Like if they have a big plan that is going to go off at Friday at noon, they're going to, rob a bank, or they're going to, blow up a bridge or whatever. Right now we're Tuesday at 3 in the afternoon in the game. He's not just sitting there waiting for Friday at noon to show up. He's actually working towards Friday at noon. He's
Mhm.
getting, the explosive set up on the bridge. He's getting his distractions all set up. Whatever his plan is, he's actually working towards it. He's not just sitting there twiddling his thumb saying, "Okay, it's not Friday at noon yet."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it still is whatever their goal is, they're still working towards it. It's just not on screen.
Yeah. Well, I think too, the other thing about the Raymond Reddington character was the scope of things that he was aware of and fighting against was so much bigger in a sense than what the if you will the PCs were dealing with.
Right.
And that's yeah, that's an interesting, is he a villain, is he not, whatever concept. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got a lot of these that are so multi-layered, it's just confusing, and I think that's the reason I find them fascinating.
Oh, I can't imagine why. Well, I've been sitting here kind of thinking, and so peek behind the curtain. I've had Star Trek on my mind a lot lately
Mhm,
because we're a few months away from Gamer Nation Con, and the theme is Star Trek.
mhm,
So last weekend, we finally got the quick start of Star Trek Adventures on the table, so that we could get a feel for the system, decide if we were going to use it or Genesis for our annual three-parter.
mhm.
Spoiler alert, we're doing Star Trek Adventures. And we there's enough interest within our group that we're looking at me starting a campaign.
Mhm,
And so Star Trek has been on my mind. And yeah, it would be obvious to say, yeah, if nobody plays the captain, obviously I need to have an NPC captain of the ship. So the Kirk or Picard, who are we going to have? Well, you know, if I want layered, I could go with Cisco from Deep Space Nine. I know that you were saying right before we started that I am much more of a Star Trek head than you are.
Mhm.
So with Cisco, Cisco is probably the most layered captain that they've had in the whole franchise.
Mhm.
And that Cisco is a single dad who has a mad on for, at the time, the face of the franchise, Picard, because when Picard was assimilated by the Borg, he was leading the attack that killed Cisco's wife. And the reason he is a single father, he's considering resigning from Starfleet, and he's given this position running a space station out on the frontier where through plot shenanigans, he becomes a religious figure for the planet that the station is orbiting.
Mhm.
And he also, as it was Star Trek's first flirtation with with long form storytelling rather than episodic.
Mhm.
And they started a war storyline. So he suddenly becomes a a wartime commanding officer.
Mhm.
And so he's got all of these roles that he's having to juggle. And you can you can watch Avery Brooks playing the character, and you see that as they started adding more and more of those layers, like he was having a feast playing with it all.
Mhm.
And like the relationship between Cisco and his son seemed so much more natural than most of what you see, especially in genre TV.
Mhm.
You know, genre science fiction TV, you generally get very, I'm overgeneralizing here, but especially at the time it was on the air, you get kind of stilted characters.
Mhm.
But there was this genuine warmth between Ben Sisko and his son Jake.
Mhm.
And just the way they gave him an arc too, in that he initially resisted being the emissary of the prophets and embraced the role by the end of the series.
Mhm.
And so having a layered NPC captain like that would be great, but if I've got an NPC captain, do I really want them taking that much of the spotlight, right?
Mhm. And for that context, for a convention game, that's a lot of setup.
Oh, no, not for the con game. No, I'm talking about our campaign.
Ah, okay.
I'm talking about our campaign. Sorry. Sorry if I was confusing there.
No, no,
But
no, that's
no,
fair. I just a point that was rattling around my head.
no, no, for sneak preview. Unlike our previous three-parters, this three-parter, we are leaning towards three separate sets of PCs,
Mm.
and there's reasons for that.
No, I like that.
um,
Kind of an anthology thing
well, there are
ish.
multiple time periods of the series for Trek.
Fair. Yeah,
Um, but
I've
if for for the NPC captain in the campaign, I would probably go with something more like what they've done with Christopher Pike on Strange New Worlds. This is a character that appeared in the only two-parter on the original series and was also in the original Unsold pilot. And so based upon those appearances, we knew where he ended up. Strange New Worlds is a prequel to the original series.
okay.
We know what we know where he ends up. We know that there is an accident that leaves him confined to a wheelchair, unable to speak and scarred, and we know where he ends up.
Mhm. Mhm.
He also, at this point in time that Strange New Worlds is taking place, through wibbly wobbly timey wimey story things, he knows where he's going to end up too.
Mm.
And so he knows that this is coming, And they've even flirted with the, well, I know it's coming. I know the circumstances of what happens. I don't know exactly when. Can I do something to prevent that? Or if I do that, will that cause problems with, breaking the timeline? Is am I destined to do this? And but at the same time, he doesn't let that oncoming freight train of his future stop him from, he cares about his crew. At
Mhm.
least 2, 3 times a season, they have a scene where he has all of his command crew in his quarters, and he cooks dinner for them and has a dinner party and socializes, and, he is that's what I would wanna do for the campaign, is have a Pike type that, you know, is the strong commanding officer, but also kind of the buddy with the crew, and maybe has some, I wouldn't repeat the, "Oh, he knows that there's a disaster coming, looming in his future," but, is there some other dark secret that he has?
Mhm.
And, that's broad enough to adapt and not be a carbon copy of Pike, but it also gives me a starting off point. I just can't, have the amazing Anson Mount be the character and his wonderful head of hair that among the fandom has become its own meme and character.
Well, I think with that, let's just leave it right there. Um, so
With Pike's Peak.
yes. So I know in addition to how we roll, you do another podcast. So would you like to shout that out or anything else in particular? You mentioned Gamer
Sure.
Nation Con, which is coming up, although there's some ambiguity around that. Nothing has been announced yet for very
Yep.
valid reasons, let's say. And a little
Yes.
birdie told me that at this point it's likely to be postponed
Oh,
until because they like to give people appropriate time to arrange things.
sure.
But it is not like, oh, we're not having it this year. It's just as of yet we haven't announced a date, but it will probably not be when it normally is.
I see. All right. Well, sure. So our sister podcast is Casual Nerdity. It alternates weeks. How We Roll Gaming is bi-weekly. Casual Nerdity is bi-weekly. So it ends up being that I effectively do a weekly podcast.
Uh,
Casual Nerdity.
I feel the pain.
The, uh, the Casual Nerdity is a more general pop culture based podcast. We talk about TV, movies, comics, all sorts of fun pop culture stuff like that. Uh, we have a long running sub feature called Clone Watch, where one of the members of our group, since, gee, shock, who would have guessed from context from some of the things that I've said that the Star Wars RPG is a lot of our group's bread and butter.
I'd never
But
guess that from meeting you people.
but one of our players joined the group and had only seen the original trilogy of Star Wars, and we were constantly throwing around inside jokes, right?
Mhm.
Always sorts of Star Wars references. So, as tends to happen with our group, they have been welcomed into the family, and has, decided, hey, I want to figure out what all of these inside jokes are. I want the context behind them. So Lauren has been going over to Nick's every week, and Nick started by running the prequels, ran episode 1 and episode 2, and then, since they're going chronologically, started Clone Wars.
Mhm.
And we have a sub series called Clone Watch where Nick and I are rewatching. Lauren is watching for the first time, and we will take story arcs, anywhere from 3 to 5 episodes at a time, and go over our observations of them. And what's really cool is this being Lauren's first time. Every so often, they come up with something. Just all of these years, we're always looking at it from the same angle, and we have a fresh set of eyes on it, and we'll be like, "Oh, oh, I had not considered that. That was an amazing observation, and this is why we do this sub series."
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're going to be doing an episode sometime in the near future. We just have to coordinate everybody who's going to be on it, where we're talking about the fridging of women in comics, the trope of women in refrigerators when female characters are killed off for no other reason than to drive the male character's story forward. And we've got a bunch of other sub series coming up that we're going to look at. We've got penciled in that this year we're going to be talking about Supergirl and the new Spider-Man movie and Avengers Doomsday, and you know, Steve and Steve will return in Avengers Doomsday. Everyone will return in Avengers Doomsday. But check out Casual Nerdity wherever you can find your podcasts. I would mention the website casualnerdity.com, but the website has been fighting with me lately, and I need to just completely take it down and burn it and start from scratch.
Fair enough.
But yeah, check out Casual Nerdity wherever you find your podcast. It's also on YouTube as well, but it does not have a video component. It is just a straight feed of the audio podcast.
Yeah, it's the way our show's on YouTube now too. So
Yep, and we we toss out collabs whenever we're on with anybody that has a YouTube channel. So
very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, it is now time for Game of the Week.
Game of the week. Game of the week.
Yay!
You going first or am I going first?
I can go first.
All right.
All right. I hope this does not break the rules because this is a game that is not out yet.
Yeah.
The crowdfunding through BackerKit, not Kickstarter, ended just a short while ago, but 30 years in the making, the second edition of Toon from Steve Jackson Games.
I
Um,
I almost threw a whole bunch of money at this.
I didn't throw a whole bunch, but I threw money at it. And late pledges are open. I played first edition a handful of times back in the day, in the olden days, and it was a ton of fun. But you play a cartoon character, and hijinks ensue, and
Mhm.
there's not much more to say beyond that because cartoon logic applies.
Mhm.
You can flatten if you hit a surface and then reinflate yourself. You know, all sorts of wacky cartoon related hijinks you can do, kind of like some of my friends and I did, and we adapted existing cartoon characters. But I think it's more fun to come up with your own. Um, Nobody gets killed. Uh, they just hop back up, just like every other cartoon character. Uh, they have promised that character design is a little more simplified, which honestly, it's been about 30 years since I played first edition, so I don't remember how complex or easy character creation was. But it's a lot of fun, and I got super, super excited when I saw an ad on Facebook that they were doing a second edition, and I put in, I went out to BackerKit and I signed up to be notified when it launched, and I pledged the day that it launched, and I am now extremely giddy and waiting for it to show up so we can add yet another system to our ever-growing list of systems for our
Mhm.
group.
Yep.
Toon, second edition.
Woohoo! All right. So my pick this week isn't actually a game per se, but it is a supplement. And let me, because I wasn't thinking about this, drop a link in the green room. This is called The Fixer's Black Book, a cyberpunk gear guide. What this is a little,
Ooh.
87-page, $3 PDF that is a system agnostic Cyberpunk Gear and Services Guide. And it claims to be written from an in-world perspective. And, this is cyberware, implants, drones, vehicles, personal tech, all the gadgets and gadgets that are kind of part of what makes cyberpunk. And for $3, it's more
Oh,
stuff.
yeah,
And part of cyberpunk is stuff.
for sure.
And it does
I
say,
am
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I am copying this link now so that I can send it to Robert because Robert runs our Cyberpunk game.
Hmm. I'll put a link in the show notes, and it'll actually be an affiliate link, which is, by the way, a way that if you want to do something for the show, if you do that, we get a little kickback from drive through
Yep.
if you buy stuff through an affiliate link. But it's not much, and it doesn't cost you anything. But anyway, yeah, this says it's priced, organized, etc. Now, I don't know how it's priced relative to game, whatever. But like I know, Cyberpunk Red. I don't know if you've noticed, Daryl. You know how all of the same kind of things are all the same price?
Yep.
That was done on purpose because the guy who designed that segment of the system has actually done quite an amount of study in economics, and it was his way of enabling it to function as a barter economy
Mm.
so that you could play it as opposed to you exchanging credits for things. Hey, I'll give you a this and a that for that thing.
Okay.
It makes
See, now
it
that
it makes that price structure in the book make so much more sense.
yeah,
It was his way of
definitely.
being able to simulate a barter economy in which you could trade things because they're at an established value bracket more than an actual cost.
Yes, instead of this costs $360 while this costs 325, in the three they're both marked at 350 because they are similar in value, so trade.
Right. So I'm sure you could apply that very easily if Cyberpunk Red is your system of choice to whatever's in this book.
Yep.
But yeah, that was a
Oh,
nugget
yeah.
I heard, and I forget the gentleman's name now, but it was the individual who did that section of the design for Cyberpunk Red, and that he specifically said that was why they did that.
Very interesting.
Because you figure that the streets are probably going to run much more on a barter economy than actual currency. But yeah, this Fixer's Black Book is, like
Oh,
I
yeah.
said, 87 pages of stuff. Now it does not appear based on what it's saying here that it's that much as far as weapons. This is gear, not
Yeah,
not weapons. They do have a book says it's more realistic modern day gear. Same people put out one. There's a link in the listing for it. It's called the Merchant of War or something, which is weapons. But this is all the, like I said, cyberware, implants, drones, vehicles, medical services, housing, that kind of stuff. And
very cool.
for $3, I mean, that's what, half a cup of coffee anymore.
Something like that, yeah. Something like that, or I try not to look when Stephanie gets Starbucks when we go to the grocery because I don't want to know.
Uh, I have it never was a conscious thing, or it wasn't for a long time, but I have never actually bought anything from Starbucks. And now I try to maintain that just so I can say that, and people give me this look like, "How do you exist?"
So, total digression. I like their strawberry cream frappuccino, so that's what I usually get. Sometimes, she'll like, hey, do you want that when we go to the grocery? And she's putting in her order. Yeah, sure, why not? I never actively buy it myself unless I'm traveling for work and I'm using expense money. Because it's like, yeah, it's good, but I don't want to pay that much for it of my own money. So, I'll let the company pay for it.
Fair enough. Well, you got anything more to add? Um,
I do not. I do not. I have sent Robert a message saying, "Hey, watch for the show notes cuz you need to get this book for to get the Fixer's Black Book." I know that oh, he has too much fun. He has too much fun with our cyberpunk game. He accidentally nearly killed us the last game though, because he was adding extra uh, to both offensive and defensive values of the bad guy that we were fighting.
Mhm.
It's like, why is this combat taking forever? And the next week he showed up for whatever next game we played. He's like, I'm sorry, guys, that was my fault.
Well, that but the in Red, maybe not as much, but Cyberpunk 2020, its predecessor, was very much a game that you did not want to spend a long time in combat. That was a very good way to end up in a very bad way.
Yeah, that was what was going on with us. We were and it also didn't help that um we were missing our netrunner, and the bad guy's netrunner was operating some turrets
Mhm.
against us. Yeah. We needed to find a way to just get in that room and shoot him.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, I wanna say thank you again for responding to my panicked plea of, "Hey, can you come talk for an hour?"
No, it was fun, and now I have even more GM anxiety as I have all kinds of ideas for NPCs that I want to work in.
Just remember, it's the chocolate it's the oh, dang, what do I call it? The chocolate lava cake brownie conundrum.
I think I've heard you mention that.
Essentially, we're trying to make chocolate lava cakes for the players. We end up with brownies.
Yep.
Everybody loves brownies. They didn't know it was supposed to be chocolate lava cake. Remember that.
This is true. This is true. So brownies for everyone. Oh, Betsy can't have brownies. Betsy's vegan.
Well, with all that, again, thank you so much for coming. Thank everyone out there for listening. Do the whole wherever you're at, like, subscribe, review, blah 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 blah. Drop by the Discord. I know we've been getting a lot of new members recently. Feel free to pop in and ask questions. Respond to things that stupid crap that I've said on the show or whatever else. We've got quite a community there that is very apt to suddenly jump into very lively conversation, although we also have our quiet periods. So that is what it is, and there's all kinds of other links for everything in the show notes, Discord, Patreon, all the game of the week stuff, Daryl's podcasts. I don't know what else I'm not talking about, but it's almost stupid o'clock in the morning, so I'm a little loopy.
I I was up till stupid o'clock in the morning last night, so I'm still going.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm usually up until this hour, but my brain is starting to shut down. So that's assuming it ever started. But anyway, I think with all that, just want to remind everyone, be kind to each other and get out there and play some RPGs.
Intro and outro music by the band 12 Noon. You can email us at meandsteverpg@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter and RPGs. Find us on Facebook at Me and Steve RPG Podcast, on Discord at Me and Steve RPGs, and as always, all of these links are in the show notes. Thank you, and be kind to one another.
How much for the cigar?
Cigar, $20, dog. You gotta go down the street to the store and buy that.